Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't. I'm EDJ and we're continuing with Kings and Generals Caesar series. So last time we saw the first part, now we're going to be watching Caesar versus Ariovistus at the Battle of Vosges? I think, I was looking up the French pronunciation of it before this video started. And yeah, we're just gonna see more of Caesar's exploits for the most part. I don't really have much else to add other than let's get to it. Alright, oh yeah, if you want to watch the original video, obviously the link is always down in the description down below. I always put it there, you know, in case you don't want to see my little bubble here and me talking. So, without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's watch Caesar versus Ariovistus.
While Caesar had been busy fighting the Helvetii at the Battle of Bibracte, elsewhere in Gaul a new threat had emerged. The Suebi, a fiercely warlike Germanic people who had recently crossed the Rhine, were now looking to establish a new homeland in Gaul. These fierce warriors and their leader, Ariovistus, would challenge the Roman legions and provide Caesar with another opportunity to prove his mettle. But before we start our video, we would like to The Suebi, led by their king, Ariovistus, had first arrived in Gaul in 63 BC as mercenaries for the Sequani and Arverni in their war against the Aedui, a Roman ally. The 15,000 warriors that Ariovistus initially brought proved decisive, helping to secure a crucial victory over the Aedui at the Battle of Magito Brega, which forced the Aedui to become a tributary to the Sequani. In response to this, the Aedui sent an envoy, Diviciacus, to ask Rome for help, but the Republic was still recovering from the political shock of the Catiline conspiracy and was distracted by an Allobroges revolt. The governor of Transalpine Gaul was ordered to help Rome's Gallic allies when possible, and in 59 BC, the Senate named Ariovistus a friend of the people of Rome to pacify him and keep him in check.
Oh dang.
Ariovistus used that time to consolidate his position. After helping the Sequani, he demanded a third of their lands as payment. The Sequani gave in, and Ariovistus began moving more of his people across the Rhine to settle in this new land. By 58 BC, as many as 120,000 Suebi had now crossed the Rhine and made their home in Gaul. Furthermore, Ariovistus was demanding more Sequani territory in order to settle an extra 24,000 Germans and had been taking hostages in order to keep the Sequani and Aedui obedient. Something had to be done. Following his victory over the Helvetii, Caesar had taken some time to rest in Bibracte. Whilst encamped there, he was visited by a council of Gallic leaders and diplomats, led by Diviciacus. They complimented Caesar on his victory and implored him to intervene in the situation, pointing out that if the Germans continued their conquests, soon the Suebi would be directly bordering Roman territory. Caesar, again, was happy to oblige.
Yeah,
As Ariovistus
so this is where it becomes the problem, right? They named Ariovistus, you know, a friend, and now Julius Caesar's about to fight him, so that creates kind of like this gray area, right? Like, is he doing the right thing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, which is gonna create some controversy. So yeah, I'm already starting to see the pieces all fall together. It's all coming together, guys.
Ariovistus was a friend of Rome, however, Caesar could not immediately go to war. Instead, Caesar first invited Ariovistus to meet him, which was declined. Then he sent a diplomat to Ariovistus, asking him to return the Gallic hostages he had taken and to stop any hostilities. Caesar reminded him that if he were to comply, the Romans would still consider him a friend of Rome and not take any action against him. This was a good deal for Ariovistus. he'd be allowed to keep the lands he had already taken from the Sequani without a fight. Instead of accepting the terms, Ariovistus doubled down and sent a message back to Caesar saying that if the Romans could conquer where and how they liked, so could he.
Oh boy, this dude's got guts on him, don't he? Yeah, it almost came across like Julius Caesar was trying to be diplomatic there, right? Like, yeah, Ariovistus is coming across as the unreasonable one. So yeah, almost like making it easier for Julius Caesar to fight him, definitely. You know, you're just feeding into what he wants, I think.
At the same time, the 24,000 new Germans who had crossed the Rhine were allowed to raise and pillage the Gallic lands as they pleased, with more Germans preparing to cross the river to join Ariovistus. Caesar now had his justification, as he had a legal decree from the Senate to protect Rome's Gallic allies. He could justify that the Suebi were threatening Rome's borders, and Ariovistus had forfeited his status as a friend of Rome by continuing to pillage the land of Rome's allies. Yet again, Caesar had the chance to market himself as the saviour of Gaul. Gathering his 6 legions, roughly 30,000 men, Caesar set out on the warpath. Both Ariovistus and Caesar recognized the importance of Vesontio, the largest town in the Sequani territories. Well fortified and well supplied, it would be crucial to the war effort. Both forces began marching to the town. However, the Romans, marching day and night, were able to get there first. Caesar rested there briefly while supplying the legions. But as they rested, rumours began reaching the men of the strength and ferocity of the Germans. Even some of Caesar's officers began having their doubts, and it almost seemed as if Caesar would have a mutiny on his hands. Caesar was, however, able to restore order by insisting that he would face Ariovistus with just his most trusted 10th Legion if none others would follow. This inspired a fanatical loyalty in the 10th Legion, whilst the others, motivated by shame at being thought of as cowards, rallied, and the legions began to march out to meet the Suebi.
Masterful. Man, that was a masterful way to avoid a mutiny. I just keep thinking of the Alexander the Great, how he handled his mutiny by just giving them the ultimate, like, blame speech of all time. But man, Julius Caesar, man, like, he is so good. And like, he's really good at most things he does. It's kind of insane, man. So yeah, let's see what Ariovistus is made of.
Ariovistus, impressed with the speed at which the Romans had been able to move and take Vesontio, sent messages to Caesar asking for a meeting, with only some cavalry allowed as bodyguards, at the place called Vosges in modern-day Alsace.
Vosges.
Caesar agreed, but the meeting did not go well, with both generals reiterating their positions. Ariovistus even went so far as to say that if he were to kill Caesar, there would be many in Rome that would be grateful, showing that he knew what the political situation in Rome was. Negotiations broke down after this, and the cavalry on both sides had a minor skirmish before retreating back to their respective camps.
Dang. It's interesting he knows about the situation, how many people don't like Caesar, right? Like the Senate and their constant thing. But yeah, eesh.
A few days later, Ariovistus asked for another meeting. Caesar, sensing a trap, sent his translators. This was just as well, as Ariovistus promptly captured the two and even considered burning them alive.
Dang, no honor, huh? Yeah, good foresight on Caesar. Yeah, Ariovistus has come across as completely unreasonable. And yeah, I think these like meetings are, if anything, maybe trying to buy time. Let's see.
With his plan to capture Caesar having failed, Ariovistus instead moved to battle. His army was composed of 6,000 cavalry, 16,000 light infantry, and the rest heavier infantry, for a total of around 30,000 to 40,000 men. Taking Caesar by surprise, Ariovistus marched his force quickly behind Caesar's position and set up camp, cutting off the Romans from their supply lines. For 5 days, Caesar drew out his army in battle formation, willing to give battle, but Ariovistus was content to wait and strangle Caesar's supply line, only engaging in cavalry skirmishes. The Suebi cavalry fought in a unique fashion. For every horseman, there was an infantryman mixed into their formation. These men were lightly armed in order to keep up with the cavalry, and together provided a flexible and difficult force to handle, and the Roman cavalry got the worst of the fighting.
Dang. That's interesting. I really like seeing the evolution of cavalry. Like, I think in the Pyrrhus series, the Pyrrhus of Epirus series by Kings and Generals, like, he kind of talked about how the Romans, when, like, the difference between Rome and, like, you know, Macedonian cavalry, and how, like, the Macedonians would wheel and go in, and, like, you know, that's how he described it, while the Roman cavalry fought more like infantry, holding down and fighting. So there is difference, but yeah, having these infantrymen basically running to keep up with the cavalry, that's unique. I like that. I just like seeing just how things evolve, you know, and just how everyone chooses to be like different.
Caesar, knowing that he would have to do something to break the stalemate or else risk being starved out, formed his legions into 3 lines. He marched this force past the Suebi position and ordered the 3rd line to begin construction of a 2nd camp, whilst the first 2 lines formed up to defend them. Ariovistus sent all of his light infantry and cavalry to harass the legionaries, but seemed reluctant to commit his entire force, and so they were easily held off by the Romans. With the 2nd camp complete, Caesar left 2 legions and part of his auxiliaries to defend it, whilst his other 4 legions returned to the main camp. Realizing that Caesar would now be able to use this 2nd camp to reconnect with his supply line, Ariovistus sent part of his army to attack this 2nd camp. The fighting was tough, lasting from midday into the evening, but eventually the Romans were able to repel the attack and even took some prisoners. Upon questioning these Suebi,
I'm almost wondering if Ariovistus should have committed more of his strength to this. Because obviously his plan was to starve it out, but seeing this now, this new development of Caesar, you know, creating a 2nd camp, which, by the way, I just like the way Julius Caesar thinks outside the box. He's like, let me just make a new camp. and you know, like, I don't know why, I just like the way he thinks, but, you know, now it's like, alright, this new camp is kind of defeating what you're trying to accomplish, Ariovistus. You might want to commit more of your strength, because then again, I'm almost wondering if he should have, because obviously with this 2nd camp, it kind of negates what he's trying to do. So if he committed more of his strength to driving them out, but then again, who's to say, because this is a pretty good fortification. If he committed more or most of his things, Julius Caesar might just maybe able to make it in time to save his camp and then engage in a full-on battle with both armies. I don't know. I'm almost wondering. I guess we'll see.
Caesar learnt that Ariovistus had apparently been told by his priests not to commit his army until after the new moon.
Oh. It's a religious thing. Okay, that makes much more sense. Here I was like, maybe you should have committed more, but now I'm seeing why. Okay. Okay.
Which was why he had not used his whole army to prevent the legions constructing their 2nd camp. Having learnt this, Caesar decided to go on the offensive. Leaving a small garrison in each camp, Caesar formed his 6 legions into a triple-axis formation with his cavalry in reserve and marched on the Suebi camp. The Germans came out to meet him, forming their wagons and baggage train into a semicircle behind them, their women standing on them urging the men on. Noticing that the German left flank was slightly weaker, Caesar positioned himself opposite on the Roman right and gave the order for his men to charge. But as he did, the Suebi also charged. Their assault was so fast and surprising that the Romans had to drop their pila before they could even throw them, drawing their swords and fighting in hand-to-hand combat. The Germans managed to form a shield wall, and neither side seemed able to gain an upper hand. Having been unable to throw their javelins before charging, the Romans struggled to break the shield wall as easily as they had at the Battle of Bibracte. After some hard fighting, the Roman right, led by Caesar, started to push back the German left. However, the Suebi on the right outnumbered their Roman opponents and were starting to get the upper hand. The Roman cavalry, led by the son of Triumvir Marcus Licinius Crassus, Publius, had not yet engaged in the battle, and from his position he could see the Roman left starting to crumble. Using his own initiative, Crassus led the third line, which had been kept in reserve, to support the flank, arriving just in time to avoid a disaster. With their left flank broken and their right now...
The benefit of the Roman reserve, because Historius Civilis in the last Julius Caesar video we watched mentioned like Rome would leave a lot of reserves, you know, like a lot of their men back, and you can see in situations like this, right? Like here, you know, it seemed like things were pretty even, Julius Caesar breaking through this side, Ariovistus' force breaking through this side, but the key difference is the advantage of having reserves, because, you know, here Caesar and Rome could, you know, save their crumbling side here, but Ariovistus seems he can't do it here, unless here's supposed to count as reserve, but you see what I mean, right? Like where I'm getting at. That just seems to benefit Rome more.
Now under severe pressure, the Suebi army broke and ran. It is not known how many people died in this battle, but the Germans attempting to retreat through their wagons were said to have been packed so tightly that the dead could not even fall over. The entire Suebi force, including Ariovistus, fled back across the Rhine, pursued by the Roman cavalry. Caesar had won 2 important campaigns in one season. For now, he left Labienus to winter with the legions in Sequani territory, whilst he attended to his governing duties in Cisalpine Gaul. But by wintering his legions in Gallic territory, Caesar was making a point. This was beginning to look less like intervention and more like occupation.
Yeah.
With the Germanic threat dealt with, Caesar would be able to turn his attention to Gaul proper. Our series on the Gallic Wars is just starting, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
Alright guys, another masterful victory by Julius Caesar. As you see, his ambitions and his plans starting to further. And, yeah, Ariovistus, man, like, he made some... He was getting pretty far, but I think provoking Caesar was obviously not a good idea, but he did have a pretty good move trying to cut off his supply lines, but his unwillingness to stop the second camp, I think, was his undoing. At least devote all his sources to that. So overall, yeah, maybe if he had, who knows, if he could have succeeded. I don't know, like I said, there's a lot of what-ifs, but he could have made it harder for Caesar at the very least. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this. I really love watching Kings and Generals break down battles. Like, he might be... Well, I don't want to make too big of a statement. Like, it's really hard to say, but I just like his take. And so yeah, next time we'll be looking at the Battle of Axona and Sabius next. So I'll see you all then, everyone. Bye.